Alright, it's time for That Moment When. Duster in Dreams album review. This is an album that released in August of 2024 digitally, apparently physically in December of 2024, and I didn't really get into it until pretty late in the year. I did listen to it a bit after it released, because I was like, oh shoot, their previous record before this one I really like, and I'll eventually review. But this is my favorite. I have listened to every main Duster album, and yes, I'm weird. This is my favorite Duster album, and I do have it really high. Um, but we're gonna figure out where we're gonna put it. But still, this album is one that it didn't initially click with me. I was initially like, I like Familiar Fields from their previous album from Together and like a bunch of stuff from Together. Right, I like that album feel more. But the more I listen to this, the more it really just cemented a vibe. And I know that people are very weird about vibey albums, but this is one where the vibe isn't really ever broken, and there are some spots where they go for some stuff that I was not expecting, but I actually think work really well. Um, Quiet Eyes is a great opener. Big thing with this whole album is I love the just overall instrumental sound. There's a lot of dynamics of the guitars and everything, and even some of the more basic drum fills, even in this slow core style, I think still work really well. This also has probably some of my favorite vocals of the album on this track. Say goodbye one more time. Like, there's a lot of little bits on this that I really love, just tonally. And I will say a big thing for me is that really old Duster, especially like Stratosphere, is something that gets brought up a lot with them as a band. And I do understand it, but for me, I couldn't tolerate a lot of their vocals. I'm very particular about vocals, and it feels like they've gotten a lot better. It's in no way perfect on this album, but I don't know. I think it works really well for what the style is. Um, it's very quiet usually, sometimes to a point where it's really hard to hear, but I think a lot of times that they do that, it's to its benefit. We'll get to Anhedonia later. Um, but I digress. This is a great opener into Aqua Tofana, which I also really love. The soundscape and kind of what I imagine with this track. It's just, and this all in the context of In Dreams, it does feel very dreamscapey, and there are mentions of dreams and things, right, in a bunch of these tracks, or at least a couple of them, and I think it works really well, especially with Quiet Eyes. It's like you're close your eyes and you're going to sleep, and it's like all these things, right? And I love the tone of this track. I also really love it on No Feel, and those like really more, I don't know, distorted guitars or just strings. It just sounds really good. Starting to Fall has some great vocals, actually a whole slew of good lyrics and longer lyrics than a lot of the other tracks. A big thing with this album is it feels very tightly knit. All the tracks feel pretty short, even though they are kind of long, just given how slow they are. It just doesn't feel like it wastes a second on anything, and yet it feels like it is long, but in a good way. Like, it feels like you still get a full experience. And Starting to Fall is, I love just the lyrics, the vocals, the instrumental. This was one of my favorite tracks when I first listened. I was like, oh, this is like Familiar Fields in my brain. And I don't know why I compare them, but I get it. I guess they're both like, there's more going on, but I don't know. It feels more like a single, but yeah. Really like Close to Home. I don't really have much to say about it specifically. Um, I really don't have much. This is kind of like the Snow Strippers album or mixtape, where like a lot of it just is dang. They have some like there's I don't remember which track it is. I think it's uh, I'm trying to remember a specific one, but like a lot of times what they'll do is they'll have a lot of weird distortion or effects on a couple of the instruments, but one of them will be really normal, and like that kind of polarization can help a lot. Um, I like Isn't Over as well. Like these are really great tracks, and this is the first half of the album, right? Or I guess like we have this whole bunch, and then the center track, which is a which is the second longest track in the album, and is an instrumental. Now, if you know me, I am very I like a lot of instrumental tracks that are I think really underrated. Think of Double Bass in the debut Gorillaz album is maybe my favorite track in that album, and this is my favorite track in this album, and one of my favorite tracks. I would probably put it in top 20, top 10. It's definitely up there. It doesn't carry the album or anything. I think it just the way this track just flows, and with the dynamics and like where all the sounds are coming in. I don't know really the words to put for it. It just I love the way this song sounds, and I think it's great as an instrumental. I think it would is better in this form. I didn't really want vocals kind of thrusted into it because I think it would have to change the structure for it. I just love how this track sounds. Black Lace has some like kind of it has very quiet vocals, but I think given the lyrics it makes sense, like these the bones and the birds and all these things, like it feels very decaying, and I think it fits pretty well. Space Trash is pretty great, and I will say it's definitely not my favorite of the two instrumental tracks, but I think it flows pretty well into Baking Tapes, which immediately goes off. Like it immediately kicks in. So I no problem with that, and I love how Baking Tapes sounds as well. Like a Movie sounds really weird on first listen with just how it sounds tonally, at least to me, but I really like it. And then it just suddenly becomes like weird ambient for a little bit, and like just little drum sounds, and or not drum, guitar, like with the I don't even know. It's so weird. It's so cool. It's not a shift I was expecting, but it works really well for me, and I actually surprisingly like the lyrics here. I feel like I initially was like it's a little goofy, but I actually think it fits like a movie. Like it feels like some dumb, uh, I don't know, dumb movie mishap, like of like oh the girls are being annoying or something, like and they talk behind my back and lying. Like it just I don't know. It reminds me of some old film, and especially with the like instrumental, but it feels like you almost fall asleep halfway through the movie. So it's funny. Poltergeist is one of the singles, I believe, from this album, which is such a weird single, like to be the penultimate track. But at the same time, I do really like this track. I love how the vocals sound in conjunction with this weird instrumental, and that going into Anadonia, which has lyrics, but they're really hard to hear. It's giving me like the vibes of Lost by Crimes in terms of the implementation, because it's so hard to hear them, and it's like they're on a weird, I don't know what it is, like a rotate or like a phaser, or not phaser, like they're cutting in and out. It's so odd. But I do love this as a conclusion track, and overall, I really don't have much bad to say about this album. Yeah, I'm feeling probably a 10, honestly. Probably between. I mean, if Humanistic somehow still stays as a 10, we'll see. It'll be above that, but probably below Vanisher, I would think.